Hello. Today we are going to be starting our statistics and data analysis unit 2, and we're going to start with the measures of center. And I like to call this skill, what does average mean? So maybe a few years down the road, you're at your child's physical doctor's appointment, and the pediatrician tells you that your child's growth is average. So what does your pediatrician, pun intended, mean by this? So we have a little comic here. The mode says, I am the most popular. I was chosen the most. The median says, I'm always in the middle, keeping everyone balanced. And then the mean says, I take everyone's values into consideration. I represent everyone. So let's formally define these. So we could say that the mean is essentially the average. And what you do is you add up all the values and divide by the number of observations. And then the median, you line up the data from least to greatest, find the middle number. And if there are two numbers in the middle, take the average of the two. And then the mode is most frequently occurring value. So for those of you who have had me before, I do like cars and I'm interested in them. So one of my favorite magazines to read is a magazine called Consumer Reports. And Consumer Reports surveys consumers about the reliability of their particular car. And each model gets a score from 0 to 100. So a 0 is the least reliable vehicle in the survey. A 50 is a car that's kind of like right in the middle in terms of reliability. And then the 100 is going to be the most reliable car. And the common wisdom is that a Toyota is more reliable than a Chevy, but let's actually see and size everything up here. So when you have a list of data, the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you are putting in order from least to greatest the data. So the Chevy has two cars that rate 2 out of 100. Then we have an 11, a 13, a 27, 29, 34, and there's two of those. A 49, 58, 75, 82, and 100. And we're just going to find the middle value first by just doing the median. So I cross from the left and I cross from the right. And then I'm just going to get right to where I can find that center. So the median is exactly 34. And in the mode, that's pretty easy to see. It's not as useful as the mean and the median. And this one actually has two frequently occurring values. So we would say that the mode is both 2 and 34. That's kind of the more common reliabilities that you see in Chevrolet models. And then we're also going to take the mean. So the mean, you'll want to get a calculator to hand compute it, or use like some type of computer program to do it. But essentially, you're just going to add up all the numbers and divide by the number of observations. and you're going to divide by 13. So we got 13 data points here. And when we do that, we get a total of 516 over 13, making our mean about 39.7. And then we might as well just introduce range right now. So range is like high value minus low value. So this is a measure of how spread out. In the next skill, we will talk more about centers of spread in detail and talk about maybe a different one that you haven't seen before. But we could say that the range here in the Chevrolet is a 98. So we do have a wide range in the Chevy. One thing that we might care about when we answer questions about reliability is, how does a Chevy compare to the reliability of, say, a Toyota? And tomorrow you're going to have a little project where you'll have like a choice of like some different data sets, but you'll be comparing like two different data sets to come up with your summary statistics, so to speak, both like the central measure and the spread. And you'll answer questions like, does the gas in the north side of Indy have, is it more expensive than on the south side of Indy or something like that? So we're going to answer, does a Chevy have worse reliability or better reliability than a Toyota? So what I did with the Toyota data is I did put it in numeric order. And something happens interesting when we compute the median in the Toyota. Toyota does not have a car with a reliability of 100 like Chevrolet. So there's actually a chance that you could get something more reliable. And you have 70 and 71. So the median is just halfway between that. So you have a 70.5. And then the mode is 75. And then if we want to find the mean, we do need to add up all the numbers. And I'm not going to write out all 12 numbers. I'm just going to add them up and divide by 12. And the mean is going to be about 66.5. So if we kind of looked at Chevy being about 39 and Toyota being about 66.5, the Toyota on average is more reliable than a Chevy. And then the range is actually going to be less than that of the Chevy because Toyotas are a little bit more consistent. They do have a model that does rate 27. That one may be a dud. Maybe it's a newer model that they didn't work through as well. But that range is going to be 65. So if you are shopping for your first car, you might be a little bit better off going for that Toyota on average. Speaking of which, here's some interesting questions you might want to think about. Does buying a Toyota always mean that you are getting a more reliable car than Chevy? So just because the average of a Toyota is more than a Chevy does not mean that a Toyota, a particular Toyota, is more reliable than a particular Chevy. And then kind of an appropriate way to describe the relationship between Toyota and Chevrolet reliability is you could say, on average, a Toyota is more reliable than a random Chevrolet. And we could actually say a random Toyota. And the key word is on average. So that doesn't mean all the time. So maybe you could buy that Chevrolet with a model of 100 and get great luck. And maybe somebody bought that Toyota with a reliability of 27 and got not very good luck. But on average, you know, when we kind of look at all the significant digits, that Toyota is going to be, if we have a random Toyota, it's going to be more reliable than a random Chevrolet. All right, so now let's look at a harder level mean question. And this is where you would kind of go next on something like the SAT. So we give you some data and we give you a mean that we would like you to get to. So to do this, you could kind of think about the mean equals to the sum of data over the number of observations. And the way that I'm going to do this is going to be like a little brute force here. So we want that mean to be equal to 80. And we're just going to add up the 74, 77, 72, and 84. And we want to solve for the next test to see what does Sophie need to get in order to get to that 80%. And by the end, there will be 5 tests. So you need to actually multiply both sides by 5. So our goal is to get 400 points. And if we add up the 74 plus 77 plus 72 plus 84, we are at 307. And by the way, these 5s cancel out. So we are at 307 plus X, and we're just going to subtract 400 minus 307, and she would need to officially get a 93. Another way that you could kind of do this is you could reason and you could say, okay, there's 5 tests, you know, we need to get 400 out of 500 points to get an 80. And I'm going to look at how many points I have so far, and then I'm just going to fill in the missing amount. So I think if you're able to get this type of question pretty well, you will be well covered, even for many of the situations that you'll see on the SAT.